Hey people, Lonnie, Real Alcoholic here. Okay, page 48. Let's continue in the chapter We Agnostics. It says right here, faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were. So, what they'll do here on page 48 in the next couple pages is they're going to go through and they're going to give us a few examples um, of why it would be more reasonable to consider the possibility um, of God, to consider the possibility of an all powerful, guiding, creative intelligence, right? We talked before about God as we understood him, all right? The writers of the book had a certain understanding of God in this all powerful, guiding, creative intelligence. They just gave us an example of a mass of steel, right? Like a steel beam that we know scientists have proven that this steel beam is just a bunch of electrons just moving around together, and the density that they move, that's what makes metal. But in all actuality, I mean, it's just a bunch of electrons. And they're talking about there must be something, some kind of underlying guiding force, um, some kind of intelligence that has designed all of this to keep these electrons moving in those particular mannerisms so that they make up what we know as steel. Okay, so so there's some things going on in this world that with the human eye, is just we can't see we can't see all the fine details, but we can see the end results. And so underlying this whole universe, man, just the human body alone is so strategically made. It's remarkable, right? And it makes us question, did this just all of a sudden happen this way? And so we start questioning these things. And so it's telling us, hopefully, that we who have traveled this dubious path, right? Well, the path is thinking that our human intelligence was the last word, right? Not only was my human intelligence the last word, but if I thought it, it had to be true. If I understood it a certain kind of way, well, then that's the way it was, and there was no debating it. I was right. I had the truth. So it says, we who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religions. Okay, we've learned that organized religions, man, is just like Alcoholics Anonymous, is made up of people. And people are faulty. None of us are perfect. So when we get an organization that's made up of people, there's going to be some faulty people in there. And so what we did was we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. So we wanted people to be tolerant of us, right? But there was no way we were going to tolerate them. And when it came to religious matters, when it came to spiritual matters, we could look at people who were faulty. There's no doubt, man. We've got some, I've read stories and I've actually known people that claim to be some great spiritual people. Even myself in my own journey at one time, I thought I was a great spiritual person, and we did some pretty wicked shit, man, that hurt others. And so I had to stop looking at the defects of people. And when I started investigating things for some understanding, then I started making some progress. So we'll come to this individual journey, man. Like I said before, I am very militant about every member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It is their right, it is their duty um, to seek God of their own conscience, of their own will, and to develop this relationship the way that the relationship develops. Whether we agree with the particular approach or not, it makes little difference, man. Um, all Alcoholics Anonymous is telling us is that these are questions each individual has to settle for themselves. So the approach concerning our understanding of this power, our approach concerning a better relationship with this higher power, the system of faith we use. That's one definition of religion, is a system of faith. So whatever system of faith we use to increase this and improve this conscious contact, that's up to the individual person. And Alcoholics Anonymous is no way going to endorse anything. They do not endorse mindless meditation. They do not endorse Christianity. They do not endorse paganism. They do not endorse Wiccans. They do not endorse Native Americans. Alcoholics Anonymous is neutral on that. And I'll say that again. It is an individual journey. And what a person does outside of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's up to them. And it's for the individual to decide to do their own seeking, gain their own experiences. Okay, so we're trying to find this power, right? We're talking about this power. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, man, we got thousands of men and women. There's who flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and to do certain simple things, all right? AA is not asking a lot out of us. There's been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of total failure of their human resources, they found a new power, peace, happiness, sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Yes, there are requirements, guys. We have some requirements. We have a few simple rules. The doctor's opinion called them. All right, we have these suggestions. And if we take those, if we meet these simple requirements, we're going to have this. We're going to have this new power, peace, happiness, direction. Page 51. Hundreds of people, thousands of people say that we have we're consciousness of the presence of God is the most important fact of our lives today. This conscious contact, a consciousness, of the presence of God. We are aware. We are conscious of it. It is alive. It is. I am not when I'm unconscious. There's nothing going on out there, right? So I get this. I'm aware of the presence of God. I am aware of this power, and it's a real thing. This is not an idea. It's not a philosophy. It's not a good thought. It's not something that's feely good. All right. We do. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we make a conscious contact. On page 52, let's talk about these bedevilments that everybody loves. We had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problems this same readiness to change our point of view. And what they're talking about is people that, the earth used to be flat. All right. Well, we changed our view on that. Most of us have changed our view. The earth's round. All right. Most people believe, well, man couldn't go to the moon. Well, most of us changed our view on that. Man went to the moon. The Wright brothers would never fly. We changed our view on that. Men can fly. Okay, so we're able to change our views concerning material things. All right, so why not change our views concerning spiritual things? So the bedevilments, we were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Was not a basic solution of these bedevilments more important than whether we should see newsreels of lunar flight? Of course it was. When we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did. So here we are, man. You know, we want to argue and debate these things concerning spiritual matters. And I see it all the time. I see it outside AA. I see it inside AA. But the truth is, I had reached a situation where the debate was over. Whatever I thought I knew was not working. And I had all of these things, man. Trouble in personal relationships, my emotional nature, I couldn't manage that. The misery, the depression, the anxiety. For a while I could make a living, but towards the end I couldn't. Definite feeling of uselessness, fear, unhappy, no real help to other people, even when I wanted to be, right? And I got up here. These are also signs of untreated alcoholism, guys. If we find ourselves sober, and sober is sober, you know, not drinking, all right? So if we find ourselves sober, not drinking, and we're still having these issues right here, man, we still might be going through some untreated alcoholism, because remember, alcoholism is coupled with this mental disorder also, with this mental obsession. And so maybe we need to review and check our thinking a little bit. So thousands of us, millions of us have solved our problem by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe. And it really is that easy. It is a simple reliance. Remember, they're going to give us some easy and understandable terms with which we can make a conscious contact with God. Okay. Talk about self-sufficiency, how that never worked, right? If I was so self-sufficient, I would have fixed myself long before I even tried to come to AA. And a lot of people will harp on this one. God either is or he isn't. What is our choice to be? So we do. In this second step, man, we're going to make a choice that either God is or he isn't. And do I have to understand what it is? No, I don't. Do I have to understand what it isn't? No, I don't. But if I can sit there and honestly just possibly think, okay, this idea of this higher power, this God that everybody's talking about, obviously it solved their problem. Obviously they are living good lives. Do I have to believe like they believe according to their particular system of faith? No, I don't. But I can believe in a higher power with simple and understandable terms enough to go through these steps, to go through this book, and I can establish a personal relationship with this God. And I will find peace and I will stay sober. And that was my choice. My choice was drop my old ideas. My great thinking over 3 years ago had me in 2 detox units and in a mental institution. So obviously I had to drop all my great big book knowledge. I had to drop all my great theological studies. I had to drop all of my esoteric teachings. When it came to spiritual matters, I knew shit. And what I did know, I couldn't put into practice. I couldn't apply them. And so we start fresh, guys. We start with a blank slate, and we become willing to grow in a conscious contact with God, follow these principles, and get a right relationship with God. Page 54 gives us a little talk about a little faith, some love, how we worshiped. In a sense, we worshiped people. We loved people. We loved our money. We loved ourselves. We pampered ourselves, right? So we were worshipers in a sense. It was mostly material stuff that we were worshiping. But in a sense, we were worshiping. And here was a question. Could we still say that this whole thing is nothing but a mass of electrons? Like this whole universe, this whole earth, our bodies, our physical being, all of this, is this just a mass of electrons created out of nothing? It means nothing? And it's going nowhere? Of course we couldn't. The electrons themselves seem more intelligent than that. At least so the chemist said so. So we start thinking that there's just possibly maybe an underlying purpose to all of this. And do we have to figure it out? Not completely. Just a simple willingness to make a beginning and say, man, there's an underlying purpose to all of this. What is it? And to start seeking this higher power to relieve my problem so that I can find peace. It's a very simple beginning. Page 55, this fundamental idea of God. Actually, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, pomp, worship of other things, but in some form or another is there. This is telling us that every single person has this fundamental idea, this little spark that wonders, that feels disconnected, right? That we're reaching for something that we feel like is lost, and we don't know how to find it. And we seek and we look. There's this fundamental idea that there's something more going on to what our visible eyes can see. And I had to start trying to find it. I had to start looking for this light, for this life, for this power, so that I could find some peace. And so we found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us. So this great reality, capitalized, this God, is going to be found deep down within us. So hopefully we just swept away some prejudice. Hopefully we can drop our old ideas. They weren't working. And maybe we can take after this 12-step process as something new, something encouraging, that if I go through this process, no matter what I thought about religion, no matter what I thought about spirituality, that if I go through some simple, basic, understandable things that are easy to accomplish, that I too can get a conscious contact with God. And so with this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. I love that line. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. And on this page, talks about most of us were angry at God, right? If there is a God, it's not doing nothing for me. And this particular guy had one of these sudden and profound spiritual experience that some of us had. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. He stepped from bridge to shore for the first time. He lived in conscious companionship with his Creator. Once again, this conscious contact, this personal relationship, this companionship with his Creator. And last but not least, when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. Exclamation point. I have never seen one person that has honestly sought a relationship with this higher power that we talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous, this God as we understand God, with simple and understandable terms, where God has not disclosed himself to them. It's that simple. And this conception, man, I keep pushing. I keep pushing creative intelligence. I keep pushing spirit of the universe. I'm going to push creator, okay, because that's what the big book uses. I'm not going to talk about blue donkeys, doorknobs, light bulbs, any of that concerning this higher power. We're seeking something of a spiritual nature that will solve my problem. And I'm not going to get ridiculous about this. There's no way a doorknob is going to solve my problem. Point blank. My sponsor, I love to tell her story. She came in, they told her, well, just pick any God. So she says, I'm going to pick the light bulb. The light bulb in the meeting room, that was her God. It had some light, right? Well, the light bulb went out. So she was like, oh, man, I got to find me another God. So she looked outside. There was a tree outside, big old oak tree. She said, well, that's going to be my God, right? Big old oak tree. Well, the city came and cut the tree down. She's like, oh, man, now I got to find another God. So at the meeting, at the same time every day, the city bus would come by. She said, well, I'm going to pick the city bus. Well, the city bus broke down. And she says, there I was. I was left with no light, no life, and no power. She said, I had to find me a God that was light, that was life, and had some power. And I thought that was kind of funny because that just kind of culminates and brings forward this conception of the reality that we find with this God, the great reality deep within us. There is something of a spiritual nature, more than what our human eyes can see, more than what our finite minds can comprehend, and we get to make a connection with that. As soon as we are willing and honest enough to try, we can be restored to our right minds. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Thanks, guys. Next time we start getting into the meat of this thing, okay? Chapter 5. We'll see y'all next time. Take it easy.